Hey guys, what's going on? My name is Travis, and today we're going to be taking a look at Mac OS X Snow Leopard in 2018. We're actually right near the end of 2018, so this will kind of give you an idea of how usable this OS is today in modern times. So just to give you a little bit of background about Mac OS X 10.6 Snow Leopard. It originally came out August 28th, 2009. That was 9 years ago. And the latest release is version 10.6.8, which came out in July of 2011, which was 7 years ago. And the last security release for Snow Leopard was released in 2013. So this is a very out-of-date operating system, and we're going to see how well it has held up throughout the ages. All right, so for our usability tests, we're going to be looking at several major factors. We're just taking a look at this from the point of an end user. So we're going to be taking a look at web browsing, Word documents or Office documents, and entertainment. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, here we are on my Mac that I'm going to be using. This is actually the first Mac I ever bought with my own money. This is a early 2011 MacBook Pro, and believe it or not, this actually shipped with Snow Leopard. So this is the perfect test. The only things that have changed with this Mac is I have upgraded the RAM to 16 gigabytes, and I have swapped out the hard drive with an SSD. So we're going to take a look at the specs real quick here. You can see that we're running Mac OS X 10.6.8, which is the latest version. We have a 2.3 gigahertz Intel Core i5 processor and 16 gigabytes of DDR3 RAM running at 1600 megahertz. Let's jump into the first test, which is going to be web browsing. So let's fire up Safari. And you can see here that we are running the latest version, which is 5.1.10 for Snow Leopard. And if we look at apple.com, you can see that things are already off to a pretty bad start. Yeah, yikes. So the way that Apple uses or renders their web page now with their CSS, it's just not clean. All their images are in the carousels are just off. So this is already off to a bad start. So let's take a look at another popular website, reddit.com. And yikes, this is also a mess. So you can see we have images all over the place. It's kind of usable, but I'm gonna say no. Let's kind of click around here, see if we can maybe, yeah, this is not a good experience at all. Let's see how things look on old Reddit. All right, so this is a lot better. So we can see that things are cleanly rendered now. So all right, this is a little bit more acceptable. Now let's take a look at Google. You can already tell that we have the quote-unquote classic Google. So let's search for Mac OS X. I haven't seen this type of Google in a long time. See, we still got Google Plus up here and all the services. I kind of miss this Google. Anyways, let's check out Wikipedia. All right, Wikipedia works perfectly as well as Google. It's just an older version of Google. Now let's check out YouTube because a lot of people want to watch YouTube videos. All right, so YouTube kind of loads. It's a little slow. And let's find my channel. Yeah, scroll down a little bit here. There I am. And let's see how to install OpenFire. Okay, the video loads, which is good. Let's see, we're at 360p and we can only go up to 720. So we do have, I'm not going to call it HD just because 720 isn't really HD anymore. We can go into theater mode, and unfortunately Safari does not support full screen, so this is the best that we can get. So we do have some limited functionality on Safari. So let's take a look at my favorite web browser, which is Firefox. And on Firefox, we're running version 45.9.0, and this is the last version of Firefox to support Snow Leopard. And let's run through our tests again. So let's go to apple.com. All right, this is rendering a lot better. You can see we got everything laid out. We don't have to horizontally scroll. We have all of our menu options. So Apple's acceptable. Let's take a look at Reddit. All right, so we're also off to a pretty rough state here. You can see we got some pretty bad formatting. It's not as bad as Safari, but it's still pretty bad. We got this all over the place. And let's take a look through here. We got some rendering issues. It could be a lot worse, but it's definitely not that bad. But I wouldn't call this usable. So let's take a look at old Reddit. And as to be expected, old Reddit looks fantastic as well, and we didn't lose any functionality. So let's take a look at Google. You can already tell that we have the latest version of Google, so let's do a search. All right, and we'll check out Wikipedia. All right, so both Google and Wikipedia also get a pass. So there it is, rendered correctly. And let's check out YouTube. You can already tell that YouTube looks a little bit different, and that's because Safari is giving us an older version of YouTube with less JavaScript. So this is the more modern experience. So let's try and find my channel again. You can probably hear the fan kicking on. All right, we got video playback. Looks like we have a white border going around the video. Not sure what's going on there. Let's go theater mode. All right, looks pretty good. And of course, Firefox gives us full screen capabilities. So we can actually kind of go through the video here. And we are running in 1080p, but you can probably hear the fans starting to kick up quite a bit. And that was the one thing I noticed all the time, even back in the day when using Snow Leopard. Whenever I was watching videos online, the fan would always kick on. It's gotten a lot better since this MacBook Pro can actually run High Sierra. Don't really have that problem as much. But all right, let's take a look at Chrome. All right, so already we kind of have a nice big warning right at the top there that our computer is no longer going to receive Google Chrome updates because Mac OS X 10.6, 10.7, and 10.8 are no longer supported. So that would be Snow Leopard, Lion, and Mountain Lion. If we look at the version number, we are on Google Chrome 49, and this is the last version available. Now, this also came out back in 2014 along with that version of Firefox 45.9. So they're a few years old, missing a lot of stuff, but let's see how usable Chrome is compared to the others. So we'll go to apple.com. And again, Apple is loading just like it did in Firefox, which is a great sign. Let's check out Reddit. All right, so Chrome actually renders Reddit properly out of all three browsers, which is kind of shocking. So yeah, Chrome looks like it is definitely the browser to use on an old version of Mac OS X. So let's check out old Reddit. And if it's anything like the other ones, yep, looks perfectly. So I'm going to assume all full functionality is here, which is great. So it looks like if you're going to use an old version of Mac OS X, Chrome is the way to go. So let's check out YouTube real quick. Or I'm sorry, Google. Let's check out Google. And it just nags us that we're using an older version of Chrome. That's no big deal. Click on this Wikipedia article and it should load just fine. Yep, and it does. So Google gets a pass, Wikipedia gets a pass. And now let's check out YouTube. All right, YouTube looks like it's loading correctly. We'll find my channel again. All right, so the video is playing. We don't have that obnoxious white border like we were getting in Firefox. So let's kick this up to theater mode. Again, looks really, really good. We'll kind of scrub through this video a little bit. And we are in 1080p, so we are in HD. And let's go to full screen. And full screen works. So that's perfect. All right, so out of the web browsing experience, I'm going to have to give Safari a D simply because most modern websites will not render properly in it. It's just kind of unusable. So unless the only websites you really go to are old sites that don't use any modern JavaScript or CSS3 or HTML5, you'd be all right. But given that the majority of the internet is using those technologies, Safari's just not going to cut it. Now, Firefox, I'm going to give that a B because as you saw, only some things were broken. So like the new version of Reddit, and Firefox just put that white border around some of those YouTube videos for some reason. Not a big deal, but for the most part, everything else about the browser was still usable. So I'm going to say that gets a B. And Chrome, I'm going to give that a B as well. And so let's take a look at Office productivity. For here, we're going to be using LibreOffice, and this is version 4.2.8.2, which is the latest version of LibreOffice available for Snow Leopard. So if we open up Writer, you can see that we're lacking some of the modern features of it, but hey, it works just fine. Let's take a look at Calc real quick. Again, this is your Microsoft Excel alternative. Again, it's a spreadsheet, so I'm going to say it's going to work just how it should. I don't know any real fancy tricks with spreadsheets, so I'm just going to say this works as well. And we'll take a look at Impress in case we want to create a presentation. Again, we're just missing a lot of the flair that the newer versions of LibreOffice or Microsoft Office have. So for the general purpose of creating a presentation, yeah, this gets a pass. So overall, when it comes to Office productivity, I'm going to go ahead and give this an A. Now, you might have noticed I kind of left email out of the question. So Apple Mail does kind of work on here. I'm not going to launch it because it did pull my iCloud information and I don't want to show you my email. But for the most part, the client is kind of iffy. Some things work, so it depends on the formatting of the email. I didn't install Thunderbird on this, but you could probably find an older version of Thunderbird. And if you're using Firefox or Chrome, chances are you're going to be using a webmail interface either way. And if Google works, if YouTube works, webmail is going to work as well. So I am giving Office Productivity an A. So if we launch iTunes here, we are running version 11.4, which is the last version of iTunes supported. And unfortunately, this does not support iOS past version 6. I might be wrong, but it doesn't support any of the newer iOS versions. So you're not going to be able to hook up your iPhone to this and copy music or anything like that, or update your iPhone. So when it comes to managing your iPhone or your iPad, iTunes is absolute junk. But when it comes to listening to MP3s that you might have or a music CD, this actually works really well. Surprisingly, it still has access to the iTunes store. I don't really purchase music through iTunes or TV shows or anything, so I can't really tell you how that experience is going to be. But if you're just using it to listen to music, it works perfectly. I'm not going to try and buy anything on iTunes just because I don't want to log in and do anything. But for the most part, iTunes as a music player works just fine. So now let's take a look at Spotify. So as you can probably notice from that nice banner right up there at the top, in a few months, Spotify updates will no longer be available for your platform. Find out more. Yes, this is an older version of Spotify. And how old is this? Well, we have a social feed, we have a top list, we have messages, we have devices, we have app finder. This is an old version of Spotify. So this banner's kind of pointless because, believe it or not, if we find out more, we get a 404. So Spotify has even pulled the web page. So it's safe to say that this version of Spotify is not getting updated, especially because it has the old color logo and all of these services which do not exist anymore. So if we start with Discover, you'll see that we just get a blank page here. If we go to News, again, nothing, new releases, it kind of just flashes at us and kind of crashes. Let's see if we go back to Discover. So genres and moods, yeah, again, doesn't work. Top lists, nothing. Overview, nothing. So Discover's broken. If we go to radio, I'm going to assume this might work, but I don't want to get hit with copyrights. So I'm actually going to play a little bit of music through here. I'm going to mute it just to see if I can actually see if this works. So I'm muting it. All right, so surprisingly, radio actually does work. You saw me click through there and songs were actually playing. So I'm going to say radio works. Messages obviously is a long gone feature on Spotify. If we go to songs, you'll see that, my song playlist has loaded. Yeah, it's fairly recent. I don't add too much music, but it's pulled in all my music under albums and artists. Again, those features are long gone, unfortunately. My playlists are there. Looks like it's trying to load some information, but yeah, that information's not there. So let's see if we can actually play a song in a playlist. So again, this is going to be muted, but I'll let you know what I hear. All right, so that actually surprisingly works. I think back in the day there used to be a play button here. I'm not 100% sure, but as you saw, it went through the list, and the random function also works as well. So there is some limited functionality here. Let's try search. Yeah, so search is still working. Let's see if we can pull up. Yep, so Katy Perry's artist page pulls up, and we could probably that was muted, but Dark Horse started playing, so I guess we could probably add songs real easily. When I did launch this for the first time, it created a starred playlist. It didn't actually import my old starred playlist, so I'm kind of worried that I may have lost my old starred music, which kind of worries me. Oh, no, there we go. So there's starred. So let's see what actually happens if I add that. Okay, I have no idea where that went, so no clue. The other thing to notice is that the friends option here is also broken and no longer works. So let's get out of Spotify real quick. The one thing I do want to check though is the web version of Spotify. Okay, so Firefox does not support Spotify web player. Let's check Chrome because we did have better luck on Chrome with other services. And no. Okay, so that really sucks. All right, that's kind of bad. So when it comes to multimedia, I'm giving this a D. You saw how much stuff was broken in Spotify and iTunes, and all that functionality may not even work. So we're actually very, very limited on what we can do. We can kind of listen to music. We may not even be able to add stuff to playlists. Obviously, we can't even really do much with Spotify. We couldn't even, access the web version of Spotify, which would give us way more features. So for this, I am going to have to bump that grade to a D. I'm still going to leave the web browsers as is, just because a lot of that functionality is still there. But as you saw, Spotify just doesn't support these older browser versions anymore. So that's only probably going to start degrading even more over the years with other services as well, and it may happen even faster. So overall, though, is Snow Leopard still usable in 2018? I would have to give this OS an overall rating of a D. And again, that's because there's a lot of lost functionality. Some things work, but overall, the majority just doesn't work. It doesn't work like it's 2011 anymore, unfortunately. So it's not a great experience. But for me, because this was the first major version of macOS that I actually used on a daily basis, it's been a real nostalgia trip. It really has. And I see the Lucida font, and it just makes me happy. The nice dock here, I love these. I love the transparency. I love that Finder icon as well. It's much more defined than in newer versions of macOS. But unfortunately, Snow Leopard its days are numbered. There's been some real major security flaws that just have not been patched because Apple said we're not supporting it. So, as much as I would love to rate Snow Leopard higher, it probably would have been rated higher, a few years ago. But today, it's just not viable. So, if you know anybody on Snow Leopard, tell them it's time to upgrade. If they really want to hold on to a Mac, find a Mac that can run OS X 10.9, which is Mavericks. And that one will give you, it still has this classic interface. It still has the wonderful bar, or the dock is still got the glass. The icons are still like this. It's still got the Lucida font. It's just got some additional new features. For example, it's got Launchpad. This doesn't have Launchpad. This is Launchpad from back in the day. Whatever was in your application stack, that that was Launchpad. So, yeah, if anyone is holding on to an old version of Mac simply for the interface, Mavericks is the way to go. Of course, in the newer versions, Apple got a little bit flatter. They kind of scaled back the Aqua interface, so you don't really have these nice defined buttons like this, or the buttons up here like that, but they're still there in Mavericks. It's just calmed down a bit. One of the other things too is the Aqua interface in this, like these scroll bars. That's just classic Aqua, and the mouse cursor here, that hand icon, they changed that in Lion, and it drove me nuts. I liked that mouse cursor, so this has just been a real trip. But anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching, and if you guys like this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. And subscribe for more, because I love producing tech videos, and hopefully we can do some more back in time tech videos like this. And thank you guys so much. You guys are awesome, and have a wonderful, wonderful day.